Today it's gonna get hot in here. So hot. We're gonna have some problems. So let's go. The era of not all good feelings is what I'm going to call this lecture today when we take a look at the Missouri Compromise and the Tallmadge Amendment and how America was in a big old mess in 1819, 1820. So let's get started. Some key themes for today's lecture. 1. The movement west. As the nation expanded and the admission of new states into the Union intensified sectional conflicts. Second key theme, to varying degrees of success between the years 1820 to 1860, various attempts at compromise were made to relieve sectional tensions. And the third thing I want you to keep in mind is, in spite of its name, the era of good feelings was a time of major political challenges and disputes. What are you talking about? Let me give you some examples of previous instances of sectionalism. 1. During the Constitutional Convention, Southerners and Northerners disagreed over representation and how slaves would factor into that representation. So you have the 3/5 Compromise. The slave trade was extended till 1808, the Fugitive Slave Act. Then when the nation begins under the Constitution, you have conflict over Hamilton's financial program, with many Southerners and Westerners not favoring things like the tariff, the national bank, and the excise tax. And then, of course, once again, after the War of 1812, there was controversy amongst Republicans about whether or not they should support the protective tariff of 1816. The national bank issue comes up again, and the internal transportation improvements. All of those things which were a part of the American system designed by Henry Clay. So we've seen sectionalism in our history up until this point. What happens is there were 9 frontier states joining the original 13 between the years 1791 and 1819. And the reason why that's significant is that there was a balance between slave and free states. There were 11 each. So you see over there on the map, there were 11 free states in the yellow and 11 slave states over in the green. So there was this balance between slave and free states. And the reason why this matters is representation in Congress. Both of these regions, the North and the South, could kind of pursue their own sectional interest. Now the challenge arises as the nation moves west. As the nation is expanding, and there's a lot of reasons why we're expanding there during this time.
West Side! Who banging
West Side, and that is because the population is growing, natural population birth. You have lots of immigrants coming in. Eventually, the Irish and the Germans start coming in huge numbers, along with the English immigrants and others. Native resistance has been crushed, unfortunately for our native homies and homegirls. The Northwest and the South by William Henry Harrison, the Battle of Tippecanoe, and by Andrew Jackson later on. You have internal transportation improvements, which are making travel to the West cheaper. You know, that was a big part of the American system, this idea of connecting the West with the East. And so you have things like the Cumberland Road, the canals that are being built, such as the Erie Canal, steamboat technology developing, all of which allows more people to move further and further west. So the nation is quickly moving west, and with that comes challenges. Sectional tensions explode, and the real big challenge comes in 1819 when we get some heat. And the hotness comes from this tension when Missouri, the first part of the Louisiana Territory, purchased by Jefferson in 1803, requests to become a state, but not any state, a slave state. And this threatens the balance of power in Congress because, as I said previously, you got 11 slave, you got 11 free. And once again, and without this balance, one section would be able to get legislation passed that benefited their interest or their section. And so when Missouri petitions to enter into the Union as a slave state in 1819, Northerners are like, heck no! Because if they enter the Union, the South is going to have the political advantage, and they're going to be able to pass laws in Congress in both the Senate and the House that would benefit Southerners. Now, what happens next is something that kind of causes additional controversy, because a Northern congressman by the name of Tallmadge introduces an amendment where he basically says, okay, hold up.
Hold up. Hey.
We're going to prohibit the further introduction of slaves into Missouri. So you can't bring any more slaves into the territory and eventually the state. In fact, all slaves currently in Missouri, when they would be freed at the age of 25. And this would be gradual elimination of slavery in Missouri. Slowly, slavery would die out. And Southerners are going, heck no! The South sees this as an attack on slavery. And not just an attack on slavery in Missouri. What if this is the start of them attacking slavery all over the South? If the North is going to try to gradually eliminate slavery in Missouri, where does it stop? And you have this real tension, and the Tallmadge Amendment
Denied.
is rejected. It's passed by the House because the North has more congressmen because of the population factor in the House of Reps. It passes the House, but it does not pass the Senate because it's 11 each, 11 states, 22 reps. It's rejected. Now, there is this crisis. In fact, you have deadlock for months. You have stalemate. No one can get anything done in Washington, D.C. You have political crisis because Northerners don't want Missouri to enter the Union as a slave state. And when you have all these three things, there's only one thing you can call on, or one person you can call on, and that, of course, is the congressman known as Henry Clay. Henry Clay kind of works behind the scenes to come up with this Missouri Compromise in 1820. And there's three parts to it, and it's all about compromise.
It's called a compromise. It's called a compromise.
One, Missouri would be admitted as a slave state. But two, Maine over there on the map would be admitted as a free state. You would keep the sectional balance. And then in terms of the rest of the Louisiana Territory, north of this line right here, 3630, slavery would be prohibited. So in all of this territory, there would be no slavery allowed. South of it, slavery would be allowed. And so this compromise kind of resolves some of the debates at the time, and the impact is huge. One, it preserves sectional balance. You got 11, now you got 12 states that are free, 12 states that are slave. Two, sectionalism over slavery kind of like is reduced. It subsides after this Missouri Compromise. Everyone calms down. Gives the nation time to mature. You know, this was a very early period in our history. If this thing started to, expand, this tension kind of got even further, things could have been really bad. So it gives our nation time to mature. And then finally, what's important about the Missouri Compromise is it shows you that this was not an era of good feelings 100%. Even though there was only one political party, the National Republicans, there were disagreements between Northerners, Southerners, and Westerners. And the Missouri Compromise captures this tension during a period that most people kind of give the statement, the era of good feelings. No good feelings during this crisis. That's going to do it. There I am with my homeboy, Mr. Henry Clay. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Click like, tell a friend, tell your teacher, tell everyone about the channel to check it out. And remember, life is all about compromise, but never compromise yourself. Peace.